Welcome to the Call to Meat Scotland podcast, where we bring you the latest insights from across the Scottish red meat sector, from the public body that works on its behalf. I'm Claire Taylor, your host for today's episode. Join us as we dive into market trends, brand communications and industry development projects in relation to Scotland's red meat sector, featuring experts, guests, farmers and stakeholders. Together, we'll explore the key facts and perspectives shaping our sector, keeping you informed and engaged with the ever-evolving landscape of the red meat industry. In today's episode, we hear from the QMS team who've recently returned from SIAL, a major international trade fair for the food and beverage industry, which is held biennially in Paris. It's a fantastic opportunity for Scottish meat producers to connect with international importers. We also have the latest roundup of market trends globally and at home, and we're looking ahead to St Andrew's Day and the brilliant initiative that is Lamb for St Andrew's Day, and we'll be sharing how you as listeners can all get involved. First up, I spoke with Chair of QMS, Kate Rowell. So Kate, thank you so much for joining me for this month's episode. Can you begin by telling us a little bit what you've been up to over the past month, because you've been very busy?
Yeah, thanks very much, Claire. It has been a busy few months. September and October have been quite busy for me. Started off really nicely for me, actually, away on holiday, which I came back from refreshed and straight into a whole load of visits and meetings. So the highlight really when we came back was a trip with Her Royal Highness the Princess Anne to Hugh Black and Sons Butchers in Stirling, which was really, really good fun. She came into the shop, she met Hugh and Laura Black, she met a lot of their staff. She was charmed by two of their nephews, I think they were, who spoke to her from behind the counter. And she went away off with a hamper of goodies from there, and she got a big cheer when she left the shop because all the people of Stirling had realised what was going on and congregated outside. So that was really, really good. Really enjoyed that. We've been on a board visit to Brown Brothers at Irvine, which are manufacturing for the pig sector mainly, but they do other things as well. And we got to see around there and see a lot of their plant in action, and that was really useful for us as well. And we finished up that day with a Red Meat Resilience Group meeting where we focused on skills and education, which is one of the big themes that's coming through as something that everybody in the sector needs to tackle pretty sharpish.
And of course, Kate, the real focus of the podcast today is going to be hearing highlights from SIAL. So on top of all the things you've been up to, you've just come back from Paris. Can you share a little bit about the significance of this event for those listening?
So SIAL is absolutely amazing. It's just about, I think, one of the biggest food shows in the world. And the first time that I went down the escalator into the meat hall, which is one of about 10 halls, I was just absolutely blown away. I mean, think the Highland Show Food Hall times about 20. It's absolutely enormous. You come down this escalator and basically the world is laid out in front of you. You know, you can see the Green Irish stand in one bit. You can see the smoke rising from the Argentinian barbecues in another. Brazil have a big 2-tier stand which costs them millions of pounds to put there. Wow. And lots of other countries, Latvia, Estonia, Portugal, you know, countries from all over the world have stands there, as well as individual companies. So the big companies of the world, you know, ABP, Don Dumbia had a stand, and that's just the meat hall. And then there are another 9 halls. There's a dairy hall, a drinks hall, confectionery. It's an amazing venue, and it just blows your mind. And what it did the first time I came down that escalator, you suddenly realise how big the meat world is out there and how small and insignificant we are as part of that. But then when you see our stand for Scotland, you can see how much we're punching above our weight. It really stands out, and we had so many compliments on it this year. There was a lot of people calling in, asking if they could take pictures of our displays, asking who built our stand because they were really impressed with it. So that was brilliant.
Oh, it sounds just such an amazing event to go to. I was reading some of the stats from it, and you're getting over 250,000 people across the 5 days. I mean, what an incredible opportunity to engage and showcase what Scotch has. And yes, it might have a small footprint, but actually, like you say, such a positive reaction. And what were some of the highlights on the stand? What were some of the conversations you were having?
So we had processors on the stand. We provide the stand and the processors come and do their business on it. So there are processors on the stand all the time, and we have people who have arranged meetings with particular processors, sort of existing customers or potential customers of theirs. You also get drop-in business, so people who are just walking around looking for businesses to get meat from. So we had a huge number of those, and a lot of very concrete business done. Sometimes I've been in the past and you get people being speculative, but they're going on to every single stand and asking the same question. Whereas this time the processor said it was much more concrete business. People wanted to come on and actually do deals, because the big headline message is that there isn't enough beef in particular, but red meat in general in the world for the demand that's out there, which was a really positive message. And so everybody's out there looking to buy it, and that puts us in a really good position.
I mean, it's so positive, isn't it, that you're having that interaction? And I imagine it's quite competitive between the stands, but there is that sort of, is a camaraderie as well, and the opportunity to connect between different countries too. And I know, Kate, I'm going to be speaking to Iain shortly, and I know that we're going to be talking a little bit about the fact that global production is slightly declining, whereas that demand is relatively steady. Did you get a sense for why Scotch beef and lamb and pork, why it's in quite high demand? What are people saying about our products?
So people know the quality that we have. They absolutely come on knowing the reputation of Scotch beef and Scotch lamb, and specially selected pork, because we're the three proteins. And they come on knowing that reputation, and that's why they want to come on and do deals with us. Our stand is a very premium offering. It's got a bit of tartan on it. It's certainly not twee. It looks very modern and very clean lines. And we have these two lovely big chillers with meat in them. And the number of people that came on looking at the meat and then came and asked, because they could see the quality of it, was fantastic. Really, really, really encouraging. Actually, everybody was big smiles all the time, because we are punching above our weight. We are a global player, even though we're that tiny country in that big sea of beef and lamb out there.
I think it's probably wonderful people to hear what a celebration that it's been, and you're getting such great feedback. So if we pick out one of those products, if we pick out lamb, of course we're approaching Lamb for St Andrews, and that is an initiative that was started around 2010 by auctioneer George Purvis and farmer Willie Mitchell, and that was really to get lamb synonymous with St Andrews Day. So how significant is this upcoming event, and what is QMS involvement with it?
So it's a really important event, and those two guys have done a fantastic job getting it up and running. And once the Institute for Auctioneers got on board, 5 or 6 years ago, it really has grown arms and legs, and it is something that we really need to get into consumers' heads. We've got a national day. Let's have our national dish of lamb that day. So QMS support as much as we're able to. We do help with comms. We help with marketing. We will be organising an event at the Scottish Parliament where MSPs can come along and taste some. Mary Goujon, the Cabinet Secretary, is our champion this year, and I do know that there's a lot of MSPs come along to that day. I think it's often billed as one of the days where we get the most engagement from them, because they want to try some delicious lamb. So I would encourage everybody to get out there and help this initiative. You can donate to the Lamb Bank that's organised by the Institute of Auctioneers. You can either donate a physical lamb if you're at the market, or the value of one if that's easier for you. And I know it's on my to-do list for today to get down and get that done, now that I've got some breathing space to get some paperwork and some phone calls made.
Well, it's just a fantastic initiative, the Lamb Bag, isn't it? And like you say, you can donate a lamb or you can donate the equivalent towards that as well. And I think it's something we can all get behind. And I think it was last year they said there was around 22,000 portions of lamb that were delivered to schools to mark the celebration. So I think it's amazing to give that opportunity, like you're saying, Kate, for kids to be trying this fantastic product in schools. And it's great to hear you're obviously part of the initiative yourself, Kate, and championing it. And it's great to have the support from Mary Goujon.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Kate, thanks so much for your time. I look forward to hearing from you and catching up in the following months.
Thanks a lot, Claire. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Next up, I caught up with Iain Macdonald, QMS's Market Intelligence Manager, who shared some interesting updates on red meat production globally and what can be expected in the years ahead. Iain, thanks so much for joining us. We've just heard from Kate there, who's back from SIAL. Of course, you were there yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the highlights from your trip, Iain?
Yeah, so SIAL, huge trade fair, and there's representation from the meat sector from across the world. You can see just how much is spent on it by all the different countries. And I think the clear message was that certainly in Europe, everyone is really nervous about supply in the next couple of years and where they're going to get beef from, because demand is, and lamb as well, demand is very strong, and they can see production declining, and they're nervous. So probably a positive message for us that demand for our products is really strong.
Well, that's good that demand obviously is increasing for red meat. That's always positive messaging. And Iain, I'm aware that it's not just been SIAL that you've been listening into. You've been at another conference hearing slightly more of a global outlook. Is it the same picture there?
Yeah, so I was meeting with analysts from all across the world last week, and that was really the key message was that supply is flat or going down in most countries. There's maybe a couple of notable exceptions, but you can see US, they've just been through a herd liquidation cycle, so their production is down, very tight market there. Brazil, I think they're expecting to go into a liquidation phase after some increase in production in recent years, so they're kind of a bit nervous about where their supply is going to be. Maybe Australia is the one exception. They've kind of gone through a rebuilding herd phase and production is peaking, but most of the world is concerned about supply.
And what does that mean for producers here? What sort of message should that be sending?
I think there's a real positive message that I think if we'd been talking 5 years ago, people were really concerned about the rise of plant-based, and that's almost gone through a boom and bust cycle, and you can see through COVID that people wanted quality beef, lamb and pork in their diet, and that continues to be the case. Certainly even at the domestic market, you could see through the cost of living crisis that demand was still robust. Maybe we saw some shift in balance of product towards some of the cheaper end of the cuts, but that overall level of demand was still there.
And we were hearing from Kate just now that obviously there was some really positive engagements happening at SIAL, and it's looking pretty buoyant in terms of the export side of things, and that's looking quite positive, isn't it?
Yeah, so every year we survey the main processors in Scotland that are exporting ahead of the autumn trade show, whether that's SIAL in France or Anuga in Germany. And this year we saw a huge increase, real bounce in the sale levels. We'd never recorded anything above 100 million before, and then it hit 137 million this year, which is real substantial growth, which I guess some of that will be from just that general price inflation of meat in recent years, but in volume terms we also saw strong growth. So I guess that's a sign that people are desperate to import Scotch beef, lamb and lamb. So good signal for producers.
And obviously you've been doing this for around 15 years, you were just telling me before we started recording, Iain. How does this compare sort of with the situation we're in at the moment? What does that look like looking back on the sort of the past 15 years? Where are we sitting at just now?
Well, it's record price levels. I guess you could say there's been general increase in price levels across the economy, but certainly for if you kind of, I think, thinking back to when I started analysing, beef prices were something like £2.80 a kilo, and they're now £5.30 a kilo. Lamb was about £4 a kilo deadweight, and it's now well over £6 a kilo deadweight, and in the sort of peak of the market it was above £9 a kilo. Pork is now above £2, like £2.10, and it was always more like £1.40, £1.50 when I started. So you can see that big increase in price levels. Obviously, production costs have also gone up, which is the kind of counterpoint. But I guess it's a sign that the demand for the products is there as well. That's what you can see through that increased price pressure the last 3-4 years.
And even just looking to the home markets at the moment, can you give a bit of a roundup? What's happening here, Iain?
So yeah, the beef market has been very strong this autumn. So we've seen increased slaughter compared to last year across Britain, and we've also seen a seasonal upturn in slaughter. We've had the last couple of weeks have been the highest kill weeks in Scotland this year, and despite that, there was further farmgate price increases. So that shows you that there's very strong competition for cattle out there. So yeah, the processors are desperate to get as much beef into their chills as possible, which is, I guess, a signal of positivity that the demand for the products is there.
And is it a similar positive story for the lamb market?
So with lamb, we're around about sort of, I guess, autumn. In the autumn, we've got the peak production period, so you tend to get the lowest price levels of the season. But if you compare historically, we're still around 10% higher than last year and 25% above the 5-year average, and yet record price levels. So again, that relatively tight market, firm demand. We've seen some price increases in the retail sector, but spend has still been rising. So yeah, a fairly positive picture on the lamb side as well.
So and then just obviously finally on the pork side, things are looking pretty stable at the moment, Iain, are they?
Yeah, so I guess price levels have really been quite remarkably stable this year. There's been very limited fluctuation. We're starting to see some seasonal downwards pressure on prices as slaughter picks up towards its kind of autumn-winter peak. But yeah, we're at a lower price level than last year, but again, still 25% above the 5-year average. And given where input cost levels are, I think it's still a fairly positive picture for producers.
Well, Iain, that sounds great. And you're sort of spelling out a positive picture. Obviously, discussions at SIAL, yes, there's that global reduction in beef and lamb that you're seeing, but that demand is there, and obviously that's reflected as well. We're having strong farm gate prices here. Levels have been up in the slaughterhouses too. So thanks, Iain, very much for sharing those points with us for the podcast this week.
No problem. Pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you. Now let's head back to SIAL and hear from Tom Gibson, Director of Business Development at Quality Meat Scotland, to hear what the week involved and why there was such a buzz around the QMS stand. Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining us on the episode. I know you've just got back from 7 days in Paris for SIAL. You'll have been there with Kate, with Iain. We've been hearing a little bit about this humongous event and the real significance it has to our red meat sector in Scotland. Can you tell us a little bit about your role at the event? What were the objectives for QMS there?
Yeah, hi Claire, and thank you for having me on your show. Yeah, we were there from the Thursday setup day for a full week, so we drop in 2 days before the show goes live, to oversee the stand build process and the sort of final touches of bringing everything to life for it. They've been building the stand for about 5 or 6 days before the show goes live, so we drop in there when it's nearly ready and just oversee the sort of finishing touches going on to it. We then have the 5 days of the show, kicking off on the Saturday morning, and that's when our processors, exporters start arriving. The big days are really sort of Saturday afternoon, Sunday, Monday, and then it sort of starts tailing off again by about Tuesday lunchtime. Our main objectives there are really to provide that platform. It's QMS's job to provide that platform, to provide that stand, to provide that sort of show, that pizzazz that ties in with everything that really links back to the QMS objectives of showcasing Scotland as the premium choice for red meat, both in UK markets, but especially important when we're looking at some of the European and global markets that our beef, lamb and pork goes to as well.
And before we get into some of the interactions you've had, we've heard from Kate earlier that a lot of people were very interested in your stand. So for those listening, what do these stands involve? What can people see? What can they interact with? Tell us a little bit, because 5 days to build a stand, so it must be pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. It's a really important piece of the jigsaw when we go to export markets, because when we look at that strategic objective of ours, that when we sat down and done this, working on a strategy, probably year and a half ago we started that, it was really important to make sure that we stood out in the global stage. We've got to remember that the quality of our product in both home and international markets is very high. We wanted the stand to obviously be able to portray that premium quality, because when we're asking people to pay a little bit extra for product from Scotland, we want to be able to have buyers walk past the stand and straight away get that feeling of quality, of provenance, just something that stands them out from some of the other commodity players in the market where it's all about volume. If you're going to walk onto the QMS stand, it looks really pristine, it looks really swish, it looks really premium, and everything that we do at the show, we keep that at our sort of top of mind, really, to make sure that we're always portraying our product in the most premium way, because that's the only way we're going to get buyers to see the value in it, or let them see from the minute that they walk onto the stand. So things like we've got big screens on the stand, so as you walk on, there's a sort of semicircle sort of entrance area. We've got a couple of big dry age cabinets in it with a lot of big hunks of meat hooked up in them. It's got cracking big ribbon loins, and we've got beef, lamb and pork in those cabinets. So that acts as the sort of the enticement to anyone who's walking past, because we will get a lot of our processors there, and we'll get them there already having meetings with current customers or potential new customers, but we'll also get some really important walk-ons to the stand from people that maybe haven't heard of us before, but they know as soon as they see the stand that it's got that premium look and feel. The quality of the dry aged chillers just pulls them onto the stand. We've then got a sort of interaction with the QMS reception desk that the QMS team, including myself, will be there on board to be able to welcome them onto the stand. We've got a couple of big screens that basically show farming in Scotland and what does our production system look like. So we've got all the lush rolling hills, the cattle down in fields down by the sea. It looks amazing. We actually played that video for the first time when we were in Italy and back in March, and our Italian friends gave it a standing ovation. So I think we could put it forward for an Oscar, I think, that video, but it is really good. And straight away from when they walk on, Claire, they get that feeling of a premium quality. It's then up to us to speak to them, talk about the requirements, introduce them to potential partners from Scotland. So we will generally take our 7 or 8, I think we had 8 Scottish companies on stand this time, so all of the main processing companies that export from Scotland, and 1 or 2 others that are maybe interested in exporting. So we have representatives from across the supply chain on the stand. And then they would have conversations with the customers. And then behind that, not to forget, we've got a couple of excellent chefs that come with us to the shows. We've got a couple of great kitchen staff that are young students that are just making their way out on the journey, that they work behind the scenes to help us out there. And then we do a lot of sampling for them as well, in terms of what they want to try and what they want to sample. So we really try and entice them onto the stand, get to understand what they're looking for, what the products that they're looking for from Scotland, and then we can give them a taste of some of the best products that they're ever likely to try. So it all works really well, and it's just a mad 7 days. It's the quickest week of the year, but it's all good. When we were at Anuga last year, I think the figures were incredible. I think there was £22.9 million worth of new business signed up by our exporters at the show. That all came through in terms of our export survey work that we undertake just before we go to these big shows every year. 1 year it's in Paris, it's called SIAL, and then the following year it's in Cologne called Anuga. These were the 22.9 was from Anuga last year. And then our export survey numbers this year that we've just produced were up to £137 million worth of exports from our processors in Scotland straight across to our partners in Europe, mostly Europe and across the world. The previous year it was £93 million, so massive increase there in terms of export numbers. So our exporters are certainly doing a good job at converting that opportunity.
Well, you've really just highlighted the significance of this event. I mean, and it sounds like so much thought goes into everything from the preparation of the stand to the different engagements, having the chefs on board, the process, and everybody there to have those moments of engagement. And I was saying earlier, there's about 250,000 people that are coming through those doors across the 5 days. I think the exact figure is around 285,000 is what I've heard. But there's 7,500 exhibitors. So it is about making your stand out, so to speak. And it's like Kate was saying earlier, Tom, that obviously Scotland it's a small player, but what you can compete on is that quality, and that's obviously what you've really tried to emphasise in that. And can you share a little bit about some of those interactions with buyers? I mean, quite amazing some of the figures you're sharing there from Anuga. Of course you won't have those figures yet, but I believe there's around 8,000 buyers at SIAL. Of course that's across the food and drink and beverage display, but what were some of those interactions with buyers like?
It's really, really interesting, Claire, because, you know, we sometimes get a lot of buyers from the UK coming on board. So, you know, that won't class as export business when we actually do some of those the deals as part of the export survey. But we do get an absolute whole host of people coming onto the stand. So it could be someone buying for an international airline, it could be a restaurant chain, you know, in places like Dubai. It could be people with their own supply chains and buyers from Europe. It could be people from European retail chains, multiple grocery retail chains. It's just an absolute mix. Or it could be a guy that's got 2 butcher shops in Belgium. You know, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just a massive, incredible mix of people that come on board to the stand. I think when you look at it in terms of scale, I kind of try to explain to people, it's generally, I think it's 10 halls in SIAL. We're in one of those halls, which is the meat hall. The meat hall is probably the size of, if anyone's been to the exhibition centre in Glasgow, if you open up all the halls of the exhibition centre in Glasgow into one hall, that's probably smaller than the meat hall is at SIAL. It's just an incredible thing. Yeah, you spend your life lost and having lost your bearings at what way did I come to the stand and where am I going next. So you tend
That's why you're there 2 days early, Tom, just to get your bearings.
That's it. So you tend to sort of get lost in the morass of stands. But yeah, and some of them are incredible. Some of the bigger international players will think nothing of spending £2 million in a stand that is, you know, 180 seat restaurants in their stand. You know, if you're looking at someone like Argentina or Brazil, they've got sort of 2 decks to them. They've got a lower deck and an upper deck. They've got wine bars in them. It's just incredible. But we think we get a decent amount of bang for our buck in terms of what we do, and we've certainly got that sort of standout on the street, if you like, for those that are walking past our sort of thoroughfare.
And all the interactions that you're having over the 5 days, what are the feelings towards Scotch beef, Scotch lamb and specially selected pork? What are the standout reasons why these opportunities, why are they so interested in our products? What are they saying?
I think there's probably 2 ways to look at it. There are countries and supply chains that have enjoyed our product for, you know, decades in Europe. You know, we're very strong in places like Italy, France, Holland, Belgium, Germany. So those markets know the Scottish products and love the quality that we provide. And predominantly for these countries, it's Scotch beef and it's Scotch lamb. So they want to come on board and maybe meet some more suppliers, potential suppliers, maybe meet suppliers that they're already have business arrangements with and look to sort of advance those arrangements and potentially take more product. Or you've got maybe people that are coming from markets that are new, where we don't have a history of going. So, you know, Scotch lamb, halal Scotch lamb into the Dubai market, for example. That's something that's just in its infancy. We've been working on that for about the past year. We got our first Scotch halal lamb over into Dubai last in November for COP. And then we were at Gulf Food earlier in this year. So as the Dubai market starts to pick up round about this time, we're hoping to have our first consignments, regular consignments weekly going over there. So these people who don't have a history or an understanding of the product, it's our job to tell them about the farming production systems, the quality assurance systems that really underpin those products. It's still fascinating to see people when we say to them, look, the average farm in Scotland has 48 cattle and 200 sheep. You know that still does resonate with people when they're used to talking to Argentina or Brazil, when they're massively upscaled. So I think that hundreds of years tradition of stockmanship throughout the supply chain and passed down through the family farms is something that's a real big selling point for them. The sort of love, care and attention that we provide to the animals, letting them understand that the quality assurance underpins that through every single step of the way, and the fact that the thing that normally gets them is that these animals have been in Scotland their whole lives, so it's not like they've been moved across countries, across different continents, or across different farms, even within sort of cross-border countries. Everything's been born, reared and processed in Scotland to the very highest standards, and the fact that we can measure that and audit that at every section of the supply chain becomes really important to give them that peace of mind that this is something they can invest in.
I think it's such a good point, is it, when you go to these events and you almost get so used to the kind of doorstep thinking of, we are used to the way that we farm in Scotland and we're used to those smaller kind of family operations. So when you do meet with the Argentinians, you meet with the Australians. I've just come back from Australia where a couple of weeks ago, they were mustering 10,000 head of cattle and moving them, 10, 11 kilometres with helicopters. I mean, it's a completely different conversation. But it is quite amazing when you have those interactions, and it just tells you, it really reaffirms how brilliant a story that Scotch beef and pork and lamb has, and how people are so interested in that, like you say, that full integrated relationship that we have. And obviously, another great thing about SIAL, you had the Cabinet Secretary, Mary Goujon, was there. What impact did her involvement and support have on the visibility at the event?
I think it's really, really important to have a Cabinet Secretary there, and also George Burgess, who's Director of Food and Drink and Agriculture. I think his title is at Scottish Government. I think it lets our exporters and our processors, first of all, it gives them the opportunity to update them and the changes at their business, and we've been lucky enough to have had that support for a good few years now from that team. So it's a case of developing those relationships and letting them understand how things are moving on from business, and letting them hear it from our business owners and our people that are really at the forefront of exporting, to see how that business is developing. But I think the interesting thing is when they then invite on their customers onto the stand, to be able to sit down with Cabinet Secretary and Mr Burgess to actually spend some time getting to know them, and the commitment that we put into that, as we kind of call it Team Scotland on the stand, because everyone, even though the processors are in competition with each other, they're all very friendly, and there's plenty of business for them all. So we kind of class it as a Team Scotland event when we all go over there. But just actually being able to speak to the Cabinet Secretary and be able to get her take on how things are developing in Scotland, or how things are developing across the different markets, and what we're doing in terms of government support and for the industry. It's just really, really valuable to see that support for our supply chain sort of manifest itself by their presence on the stand, and that team come over generally on the Sunday, sort of about lunchtime on the Sunday, and they spend the full Monday with us as well. So there's lots of time for them to meet a lot of the customers of our exporters and get involved in some of the work that we're doing on the stand as well. So yeah, it's incredibly valuable, and it's something we really appreciate that time taken to come out and support us.
I'm really glad we're actually focusing on SIAL for this episode of the podcast, because I think a lot of people listening probably won't, maybe not understands the right word, but know the amount of work that can go on behind the scenes with all these relationships with different stakeholders, the work that goes into an event like this, but bringing together all the different partners, bringing in the Cabinet Sec and her aides and team as well. There's a huge amount that goes on, so it's really great to get this sort of real understanding for how it's all put together, Tom. And just to sort of pick up on something actually that Iain said earlier, he was sort of looking at sort of kind of trends over the next couple of years, and it does look like there's going to be a reduction in meat production, but he was saying that doesn't really equate to the actual consumption levels are going to remain quite stable. Was this a conversation that you came across at SIAL? What was the mood in the room around this?
Yeah, I think pretty much across Europe, generally availability challenging. There's a lot of national herds that are reducing a lot quicker than ours. So, you know, we're doing not too bad, but our national herd is still going down, and that's something that we need to try and stop and get that to level off if at all possible. And that's all about giving farmers confidence to push on and invest in their business. And I think one of the good things about going to somewhere like this is to let them understand the demand that is out there for product. You know, it's absolutely massive. I'm having conversations over the past few months with, you know, French, as I mentioned earlier on, you know, French retailers about beef supply, because they want to try and secure that going forward, because they know where the numbers are going. So, you know, there is nowhere more sustainable, I think, in Europe to produce premium quality beef and lamb than we can do in Scotland. So it's essential that we can continue to do that, not just for our home markets, but for some of our export markets as well. So we feel it's really key to try and let our farmers understand the opportunity that's out there and give them the confidence to reinvest in their business.
And I guess, Tom, just lastly from you, what are the next steps for the market development team moving forward?
Well, there's a lot of work to do in the follow-up from SIAL, but that's all the really good stuff that we love doing. There's development opportunities with partners that our exporters already have. So even from SIAL last week, we're going to do some work in Holland, developing supply chains there, developing supply chains with partners in Italy, and some conversations around further development in France. Going to be doing some work on there. We are going to be signed up for a couple of shows, or looking at signing up for a couple of shows. We will be having some people over at Gulfood in February in Dubai, because that market will continue to grow, not just in Dubai, but the amount of conversations we're having from some of the other Gulf states about looking to try and source premium quality lamb, in particular halal lamb. So there's been, you know, interest from Qatar, there's been interest from Saudi. Slightly different international accreditations required there for halal, but that's stuff that we need to look at in terms of development going forward, because there's massive opportunity there. And then we've another UK show, IFE, that we'll probably do early next year as well. I think that's in March, but that would again be a partnership that we do with Scotland Food and Drink and SDI, so Scottish Development International, and also working with that SDI team, because I think what we don't want to forget, Claire, is we've got 16 in-market specialists out there in some of the newer markets that help us a lot of the time with market access or linking us up with potential partners there. So there's a bit of exploratory work that we're going to be doing in the States as well for the pork market, and then some other work with SDI teams around Europe and the Middle East as well. So there's lots going on, lots of development opportunity. So it's all go for the QMS market development team.
Well, you're going to be kept very busy, Tom, and I think just what a confidence boost to hear that there is such interest and excitement around the products that we're offering and all these different touch points that you're obviously creating globally. So best of luck with the next steps. I'm sure you'll have a lot to get through after SIAL. But talking back to SIAL, we're going to head over to Alex Baby. Not live. I wish it was live. I wish I was in SIAL after you've described such a fantastic event. But Alex has been on the ground with you, Tom, Kate and Iain, and she's been speaking to exporters, processors, producers and gathering what's been happening. So we're going to head over to Alex. Thanks so much for your time, Tom.
Thank you. Cheers, Claire.
So I caught up with the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs, Islands and Land Reform, Marie Goujon at SIAL Paris. It was a very busy show and there is some audio background noise, so I've recorded my questions retrospectively. I first asked Ms Goujon to share a bit about her role at the show.
First of all, well, it's my second time at SIAL now. It's, first of all, just great to catch up with the Scottish processing businesses that are here, to find out what they're hearing, what they're seeing, and just generally how things are at the moment. But it's also great to be here to help sell the incredible Scottish produce that we've got here, but also to see the demand that there is for Scotch out there, and there's definitely huge demand.
What do you like about attending events like SIAL, and how do you think they benefit the Scottish red meat sector?
I think being at trade shows like this and having such a strong presence like QMS have at this show is hugely important, because this is, I think, the world's largest food innovation trade show. There's over 7,500 exhibitors here from over 130 countries. So in terms of showcasing what we've got to offer, this is such an important platform. And you can see that here just from the number of people that have been coming past the stand. So it's really important because it opens up new business opportunities for our processors, which then has an impact and a positive impact on our primary producers back in Scotland. But I think it's that showcasing element of it and being able to tell the story of what we produce in Scotland and to tell that story to the world.
The next question was, how would you describe Scotland's reputation in the global market for red meat?
From what I've seen so far and from the different people I've spoken to, I think Scotland is held in very high regard in terms of the quality of our Scotch beef, our Scotch lamb, and specially selected pork too. Because that's the thing, there are some countries here where we'll never be able to compete in terms of the quantity of what's produced, but I think where we do definitely stand out is in terms of that quality, which is well recognised. And I think we are in a unique position in Scotland in terms of the assurance that we can offer, and that right through the whole life of the product, really.
And in your view, how do these trade shows highlight how sought after red meat is globally?
I mean, it's just been so evident from the time that I've been here, just how sought after our product is. And again, it's about that story about how we produce the red meat that we do, our Scotch beef and our Scotch lamb. But you can tell people gravitate towards the stand here in Scotland because they know all of that. And I think it's the quality, and the message about the quality is definitely out there.
Hi Grant, thanks for joining me today. If you could please introduce yourself, the business you work for, and your role in the business as well, that would be great. Thanks.
Hi, my name's Grant Moyer. I'm the Managing Director of AK Sword Arts, independently owned beef business in Scotland.
Thank you. And why do you come to SIAL, and what is it about these events that you enjoy?
We come to SIAL because we get to see all of our export customers in SIAL, and we get to see them all under one roof over a 3-day period. And we have quite an intense time over 3 days. We will line up something like 27, 30 different meetings in there, but it's a great way to do business. And we also come to SIAL because we get to see what everybody else is doing at the same time. And that's interesting. We learn an awful lot in there, and we also get to benchmark ourselves in terms of what we're doing as a business and as an industry against the rest of the world, all under one roof.
That's great. So do you think it's important that Scotland is represented here, and why?
I think it's absolutely critical. I don't think you can be a player in a global market and not turn up here. You have to be represented at SIAL. And I think the way we now do it and what we do with QMS stands easily against what everybody else is doing. And bear in mind, we've got some of the big beef superpowers here. We've got the Australians here, we've got the New Zealanders here, we've got the US here, the South Americans here. They are all here, and what we are doing now and the front that we put on is easily as good as everything that they've got.
Thank you for tuning in to the Quality Meat Scotland podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen for more monthly episodes as we continue to explore the vital topics affecting the red meat industry. If you want to stay updated with the latest news in our sector, be sure to sign up for the weekly QMS newsletter by emailing info@qmsscotland.co.uk. Join us next time for more insights from experts, farmers and industry leaders. But until then, stay connected with us on our social channels and keep up with the latest news from Quality Meat Scotland.